The landscape of the Islamic Republic has fundamentally shifted. Following the events of March 2026, a new era begins. Following the death of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, Iran's Assembly of Experts has elected his second son, MOJTABA Khamenei, as the country's third supreme leader. This appointment marks the first transition to dynastic rule in the history of the Islamic Republic, a move heavily influenced by the IRGC. MOJTABA Khamenei, at age 56, has long been a shadow power, serving as his father's gatekeeper for decades without holding formal office. The new leader inherits a state in profound crisis, characterized by active conflict and sustained military pressure from the US and Israel. Significant damage has been reported to Iran's missile infrastructure and civilian utilities, further straining a fragile regime. Geopolitical isolation has deepened as attacks on regional energy hubs and the Strait of Hormuz have alienated neighboring Arab states. Born September 8, 1969, in Mashhad, MOJTABA grew up during his father's years as a revolutionary and political prisoner. His military ties were forged during the Iran-Iraq War, where he served in the Habib Battalion alongside current security leaders. These wartime bonds form the bedrock of his influence within the IRGC security apparatus. For over 2 decades, MOJTABA effectively managed the Beit, the office of the supreme leader, controlling the state's most critical levers. This office controls security and financial assets, often rendering the elected presidency a mere facade in the Iranian political system. In 2019, the US Treasury sanctioned him for representing his father in an official capacity, despite his lack of a formal position. MOJTABA studied in Qom under conservative scholars, but his religious credentials remain a subject of debate. He does not hold the rank of Ayatollah, creating a jurisprudence gap that the system has shown flexibility in bypassing. Analysts note that his selection was driven by the need for elite consensus and survival, rather than strict constitutional adherence. The transition was a wartime decision managed by the security state to ensure internal stability and chain of command continuity. Upon Ali Khamenei's death, an interim council was formed, but IRGC intervention quickly shifted the balance toward MOJTABA. Reports indicate the Assembly of Experts elected him under significant pressure from the Guard, prioritizing control over national consensus. MOJTABA was viewed as the only candidate who could ensure direct continuity with his father's legacy, preventing internal splits. He assumes power during an escalating regional conflict. Israeli intelligence reports that 50% of Iran's ballistic launchers are disabled. Approximately 200 units have been destroyed since June 2024, a significant blow to the regime's asymmetric capabilities. Strikes have hit oil storage and desalination plants. Bahrain has even accused Iran of striking its own vital water infrastructure. Reports also suggest IRGC commanders are using hospitals and schools as shields for military equipment and meetings. Analysts identify a critical fork in the road for MOJTABA's leadership, defined by 2 very different strategic paths. The first path is defiance, continuing the asymmetric war via missiles and proxies, risking total economic destruction. The second is a climb down, accepting major concessions and abandoning his father's 37-year legacy in a single afternoon. As the next of kin, he holds the right to demand retribution for his father's death, a unique theological and political burden. However, doctrine allows the leader to set aside revenge if preserving the system requires such a pragmatic sacrifice. The Khamenei family controls a vast financial empire, which remains a focal point of domestic resentment and international scrutiny. Ali Khamenei's wealth is estimated at approximately $95 billion, a financial empire built on property seizures. MOJTABA's own assets are estimated at $3 billion, including gold and diamonds stored in the UAE and Syria. His brothers, Masoud and Maysam, also control significant assets in vehicle sales and domestic enterprise. Iran has attempted to use its oil weapon, causing Brent crude to surge past $105 following MOJTABA's appointment. Global impact was immediate, with Qatar halting production after drone attacks caused European gas prices to surge by 45%. Yet, 70% of Iran's own non-oil trade depends on the strait, making total closure counterproductive to their own economy. International reactions have been swift. The United States has stated that MOJTABA is unacceptable and will not last long without approval. Israel's defense minister has warned that any leader from this regime is a certain target for assassination. Regional players like Saudi Arabia and the UAE have placed their forces on heightened alert, fearing further instability. Domestically, high public hostility and a failed state reality suggest that a ceasefire would not stop internal political decay. To understand the future, we must look deeper into the biographical profile of the man now at the helm. MOJTABA has spent most of his life operating within the shadows of the Iranian theocracy, shifting from advisor to supreme authority. He grew up during his father's years as a revolutionary, witnessing firsthand the struggle for power and the cost of political survival. His service in the Habib Battalion was more than military duty. It was the birth of a powerful security network. This unit included individuals who now lead Iran's security and intelligence services, ensuring MOJTABA's deep ties to the IRGC. As the gatekeeper for his father, he managed access to the highest office, becoming a pivotal figure in state decision-making. The office of the Supreme Leader, or the Bait, became his primary base of operations, overshadowing formal government institutions. His management of this office often rendered the elected presidency a mere facade, a theme consistent throughout his career. His religious studies in Qom were mentored by conservative scholars, yet his lack of the Ayatollah rank remains a strategic gap. The system's flexibility in bypassing traditional requirements highlights the priority given to security and continuity. Now we turn to the economic realities that underpin the Khamenei family's grip on power and the nation's wealth. EIKO, the financial empire of Ali Khamenei, was built on property seizures, amassing an estimated $95 billion. MOJTABA's $3 billion fortune includes significant assets in the UAE, Syria, and Africa, including gold and diamonds. His brother Masood controls Renault vehicle sales in Iran, with additional assets held in France and the United Kingdom. Maysam Khamenei is involved in the family's enterprise and domestic trade, completing the family's extensive economic network. The attempt to use the oil weapon has introduced extreme market volatility, pushing Brent crude past $105. European gas prices surged by 45% following drone attacks on production sites, a global impact of the regional war. But this weapon is a double-edged sword. 70% of Iran's own non-oil trade relies on the very strait they threaten to close. As we conclude this strategic briefing, we look toward the potential outcomes and the way forward for the region. The path of defiance carries the risk of direct strikes on the leadership and the total destruction of the Iranian economy. A climb down would require dismantling a 37-year legacy, a move that would fundamentally alter the regime's identity. The US stance is clear. MOJTABA is unacceptable, and his leadership is viewed as temporary without international approval. Israel's warning of certain assassination for any leader selected by the regime highlights the extreme personal risk MOJTABA faces. Regional allies and powers like China are pressing for stability, emphasizing the need to keep the Strait of Hormuz open for energy flow. Domestic opposition and a failed state reality suggest that the path ahead is fraught with internal instability and public hostility. The accession of MOJTABA Khamenei is a pivotal moment in history, one that will define the future of Iran and the Middle East. This has been a strategic briefing on the leadership transition of March 2026. Stay informed as the situation continues to evolve.